We're going to talk a little bit of Cleveland Browns football right now, and we'll be talking specifically with our Arizona Cardinals insider, Adam Green from Arizona Sports 620. Adam, how you doing today?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Welcome to the Angle of Pursuit. We're glad we could have you. You know, looking at this game, it's a tough time to play Arizona right now because you folks are really starting to warm up and catch fire as the season progresses.
Yeah, absolutely. The Cardinals, if most people know, they start off the season 1-6, and everybody was kind of giving up on the season, getting into the suck for luck campaign, sweepstakes almost, if you will. And all of a sudden they started winning games, and at first they beat the Rams. You're like, okay, it's just the Rams. They're not very good. Then you go on the road and beat the Eagles. Okay, they're not playing great, but it's still a road game. You lose to the Niners, but then you beat the Cowboys, you beat the 49ers, and people are starting to think maybe this team has turned the corner, and instead of being the 1-6 team, maybe we are that squad that lost a few games by like 11 points early in the season, that they are pretty good.
What's going to be the quarterback situation come Sunday?
That's a good question. Kevin Cobb, he had suffered a concussion last week against San Francisco, and he's practicing a little bit. He practiced a little bit yesterday, did a little bit more today. Coach Whisenhunt said that he's making a little bit of progress, and they're hoping to see more as the week goes on. If he had to guess, I'd probably say John Skelton would get the nod simply because Kevin Cobb has a history of concussions, and they want to kind of take it easy and be careful with him as they go. But right now they're still undecided.
You folks had sort of a difficult situation there at quarterback. Prior to obtaining Kolb in that trade, you had Skelton, you had former Brown Derek Anderson. You know, you had a couple of different guys. I think you had John Beck as well. Is that right?
Max Hall.
Or Max Hall. Yeah, Max Hall. And, now you trade for Kolb. What's the verdict at this point in the Kolb experiment?
It's really inconclusive. He's played okay at times, poorly at others, but a lot of people don't think he's played enough to really get a feel for the system and for his teammates. And part of that's his own injury problems. He missed about 4 games with a turf toe injury, among other issues. But it's really, he's been okay, but it's kind of, you can't really be sold on him one way or the other so far in his time with Arizona.
Adam Green with us, ArizonaSports.com. Now, this is already, how long's Whisenhunt been there? 5 years?
Yeah, this is year 5.
Year 5. And you kind of hit the peak of the mountain there, making it to the Super Bowl. Does the team feel like they've taken a step back from that team?
Oh, they absolutely have, but they also lost a lot of players. I mean, most notably Kurt Warner left, before he retired before last season. Anquan Bolden's no longer there. Steve Breston's no longer there. Antrell Roll, Carlos Dansby, Antonio Smith left right after the Super Bowl. There's just a lot of players, and that's the NFL for you. There's going to be turnover from year to year. But they definitely took a step back last year when they were trying to recover from the loss of Warner and Bolden specifically on offense. And for a while this year, it seemed like they still hadn't recovered. But now the defense is starting to pick up their play under Ray Horton, and the offense is kind of finding its way as they go. So did they take a step back? Absolutely. But it seems like maybe they're climbing back up again.
Those departures that you're talking about, do you kind of attest that to, the success of the team, and then, you see all the players coming back looking for contract increases, or is there something more there with ownership not wanting to make that long-term commitment to some of those guys?
Well, ever since they moved into the new stadium in 2006, ownership has been much better about spending money and trying to keep their guys. But part of it's just which guys do they want to keep. They identify their quote-unquote core players, and they've tried to keep them. Adrian Wilson, Darnell Dockett, Larry Fitzgerald, those are guys they gave big money to and kept them in Arizona, where other guys like Carlos Dansby and Antrell Roll, Anquan Bolden wanted out. And it's just that's the way it goes in the NFL. Players leave, especially when they're good and sought after, as those guys were. So I guess it's a good problem to have if you're the Arizona Cardinals, because back in the day, they never had anyone, maybe one player every few years that some other team would want. So if you have good players, other teams are going to want them, and other teams are going to pay big money to get them.
Adam Green, Arizona Sports 620 with us today, our guest. Is there any pressure at all on Ken Whisenhunt to produce now after the drop-off?
Well, if you would have asked me this question about 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, the answer would have been a resounding yes. When you're 1-6 following a 5-11 season, people were starting to whisper, and myself, I'd written a couple columns on ArizonaSports.com just saying that maybe this, a quote, hubris was the word I used, or the system. Every week it was, we trust our system, we think that it works, we know that it works, we're going to believe in it and keep working, and it wasn't. But now you start winning games, and it's like, maybe he was right. So, yes, there was a time where there was pressure on him, maybe not to win, but to not keep losing as much as he has in the way they were losing. But now that they're winning games, I think people are right on board with that bandwagon once again.
From an inside perspective, with Whisenhunt being a former assistant in Pittsburgh, does this game have a little bit of a different feel, being that his background in Pittsburgh and it's going to be the Browns coming?
I don't think so. He's been out of the division long enough. I mean, when they played Pittsburgh in Wisnan's first year in Arizona, it definitely meant something at University of Phoenix Stadium. And then they played Cleveland later in that season, if you recall, which was that big controversy at the end of the game where it was a pass interference that wasn't called on the touchdown, one of those things. But I don't think he views the Browns necessarily as one of the big rivals, and I don't think anyone out here in the Valley looks at it that way either. But being that he was an old AFC North guy, he definitely has some familiarity there.
Looking at the game Sunday, what do the Browns have to do in order to come out on top?
That's a good question. They got to play better than they have been. Admittedly, I haven't seen a lot of the Browns, but I know they got their quarterback issues. I think it's going to be Seneca Wallace this week, right?
It is. It's looking more and more. They haven't made the official announcement, but if you watch the press conference today, Coach Shermer said, and I quote, 2 + 2 is 4, when people were asking who's going to start, and McCoy's not even at the facility. So yeah,
it's going to be tough. The Cardinals have, like you said earlier, they've been playing a lot better recently, and it's been their defense that's been carrying them. Defense has been shutting people down. They got 10 sacks over the last 2 games, and this is against Dallas and San Francisco. Ray Horton's defense has taken hold. They're getting to the passer. Their corners are playing better. The offense is still struggling a little bit. So I guess you could say the Browns to have a chance, they need to maybe get out to an early lead, maybe get a couple turnovers, maybe especially if John Skelton is the starter, get a couple points early on with an interception or a fumble and get out on top early, because John Skelton's kind of proven, especially if he is the starter, he gets better as the games go on, so you kind of need to have a nice buffer there for when that happens.
I think the 2 keys to this game, and I want to get your thoughts on it, one is going to be that Joe Hayden versus Larry Fitzgerald matchup. Joe Hayden has proven himself to be an emerging kind of shutdown corner in this league. Do you think that that'll be a crucial matchup?
It's always a crucial matchup. Larry Fitzgerald is the entire offense, or at least he has been in a lot of the time, and if you can slow him down, then you definitely have a chance. And he torched the 49ers last week for 140-plus yards and a touchdown. He's looking like Larry Fitzgerald. He hasn't lost his step. He is still one of the top 3 receivers in the game. The
other huge matchup is going to be, I think, our defensive line, whether, number one, they're able to control the run with Beanie Wells, and number 2, the left side of our line with those 2 rookies, Jabal Shared and big old Phil Taylor, thank you, from Baylor. Them getting pressure on the quarterback. What's the line in Arizona look like offensively to protect?
Ooh, they're a little tricky sometimes. Some nights they look pretty good, or sometimes they look pretty decent where they can actually protect the quarterback. But Kevin Cobb's been hurt for a reason. He gets banged up. John Skelton's been banged up a little bit too. And they're a much better run-blocking line than they are pass-blocking line. And that's shown when Beanie Wells has had some strong games against the Rams a couple weeks ago, 228 yards. But he's been slowed with his injuries too. So you can get pressure on the Cardinals quarterbacks, I guess is what I'm saying. You can get to them, but if you don't, then you're going to have trouble stopping them, because Larry Fitzgerald can make plays. Early Doucette, Andre Roberts are kind of getting a hold of things in the receiving game. And then, again, you still have Beanie Wells, who at times has been one of the game's best running backs this year.
Adam Green, Arizona Sports 620. Before I let you go, I got to get it from you. What's your prediction for this Sunday's game?
I think the Cardinals the defense is going to do it again. I'll say 27-13. I don't think the Browns have enough to keep up in Arizona.
And I would say that I'd be right there with you. I think it's going to be tough to game plan for Seneca Wallace, because I think he's better than most people think, and you don't have a lot of tape on him. I think this thing's actually going to be pretty close, and I like it to be a little bit more like 27-24, and I think it could go either way. I really do. Adam, thank you so much for joining the program.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Adam Green, Arizona Sports 620 and ArizonaSports.com.